Hello, everyone. My name is Nashid. I hope you're enjoying the MERC conference today. Let me begin to extend my deepest apologies for not being able to present live at the conference because I'll be on an overseas flight during my scheduled presentation time. And I would like to acknowledge the Kulin and Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people to start off, on whose USAP land that MERC conference is being held and where I'm presenting today. So I pay my respects to their elders, past and present. Today, I would like to share my journey of research on language teachers' professional identity in Australia, especially innovations that stemmed from examining a series of research problems in this study. These problems were thoroughly explored through both inductive and deductive approaches, drawing insights from transdisciplinary theories over an extended duration. Within the allotted time, though, it's challenging to fully encompass the breadth and depth of this research, but I'll try my best. I hope sharing my journey assists you in conceptualizing and designing your research beyond empirical findings, especially if you're in the early stages of your study. In my talk, you may see parallels with your experiences of being othered due to race, accent, or culture, or language, and how you navigated those. So in this study, there were 16 participants, 13 female and 3 male, and they were all transnational, transcultural, and plurilingual English language teachers who adopted a cosmopolitan identity in their professional environment. So characteristics of these participants include migration to Australia, English as a second language, residency in Australia ranging from a few years to 50 years. And employment across various ESL or EAL sectors in Australia. While some were not initially employed in the mainstream school sector, they transitioned to the ELTs and migrant sectors due to mainly non-employment. So except for a couple, all began their teaching careers in countries where English is not the primary language. So the research problems are twofold. So misrecognition of teachers' professional identity, number one, and to date, no research has examined how language teachers from their professional identity based on their lived experiences over time. And the aim of the research was to explore how the language teachers' lived experiences over time shaped their professional identity in Australian education context. And 3 research questions are: how did the teachers initially become English language teachers? How did they construct their professional identity in Australia? And how did they imagine their professional identity in the future? And from this research problem arose the theoretical problems. Existing theories did not adequately trace the evolution of language teachers' professional identity over a long period of time, and a single theory was insufficient to explore the research problem. And the methodological problems were existing methods were not suitable for examining how language teachers formed their professional identity based on their narratives of lived experiences over time. And methods so far just used to study the experiences within and in some cases across the snapshots of context and time, but not the whole life. So the combined methods of this study, so grounded on the the philosophical and practice traditions of hermeneutic phenomenological methodology, the combined method of hermeneutic phenomenological narrative inquiry was adopted to organically explore the nature of the phenomenon without any constraints, especially because given that the research aimed to understand the professional identity of the language teachers by examining the layers of individual narratives and identifying essential meaning of their experiences beyond binary. So the interview questions and prompts were framed around the 3 temporal research questions based on their past, present, and future. The reflective narratives evolved through dialogic interactions between themselves and me. So the data creation, in terms of the data creation, the participants reflected on their deep-seated personal experiences using Google Docs and follow-up interviews over time, engaging prompts and playful interactions with the primary researcher during, that's me, and after the written reflections enriched the data. So here the hermeneutic phenomenological data creation and analysis involved exploring teachers' experiences using reflective and dialogic narratives within broader cultural contexts over time, interpreting data iteratively, combining existential themes like lived body, lived time, space, and relations to others with transdisciplinary theories. So delving deep into the layers of lived experiences to unravel the essence of language teachers' professional identity. Whereas narrative data creation and analysis involved accessing and investigating lived experiences through narratives, employing adaptable story bodies in both written and oral formats. So it also involved providing participants and the flexibility to share personal stories in written form at their own time and privacy. Organizing narratives chronologically in alignment with research questions, and diving into the depth of professional identity by analyzing narratives in socio-cultural, interpersonal, and personal contexts, both individually and in relation to others over time. So here is the visual presentation of the analysis, how I did the analysis using the two methods, but I'll just briefly explain how I did that. So narrative analysis revealed distinct motives and patterns for each research questions. For example, the analysis for research question 1 uncovered participants' deep affinity with the English language and its pedagogy and ambitions to relocate to English-speaking countries. So from the analysis, 3 coherent narratives surfaced. For example, for research question 1, it depicted their trajectory from early childhood through their decision to move to Australia, emphasizing the significance of English and English teaching in their lives. The hermeneutic phenomenological analysis evaluated stories using existential themes, as you can see, contextualized by socio-cultural, values of English and native speakerism. And this desire, the concept desire, is discovered in this process, especially in relation to the research question 1, fueled by affective experiences, emerged as the driving forces to become proficient users of English and English language teachers. So from a comprehensive analysis of the 3 narratives, the prevailing theme emerged as hybrid professional becoming, which is the grand theme. And this encapsulates the overarching narrative of how English language teachers' transnational experiences throughout their lives shaped their professional identity in Australia. So here is a visual representation of the theory that emerged in this study. So to accurately represent the intricate evolution of the language teacher's professional identity over time, I incorporated a multitude of theoretical concepts within the literature and beyond, in relation to the data, of course. And these concepts shed light on the profound effects of ideologies, affect, power, solidarity, reflexivity, desire, imagination, and agency on their identity, in relation to their identity. So this identity formation was closely intertwined with their hybrid practices, where hybridity informed and augmented their agency, and vice versa. So central to this exploration was the notion of becoming. The essence of becoming is rooted in hybridity, which is seen not as a final destination, but an unfinalized, ongoing transformative process. So that the dynamic is reminiscent of constantly oscillating between the axioms of foreign and familiar. So the hyphenation in a hybrid identity doesn't denote assimilation of the element into another, of one element into another. Instead, it underscores the coexistence of the incommensurable elements, the stubborn chunks from both spaces, as Baba says. Hybridity in this context isn't a redemptive quality. It embodies tactics of survival and continuity, articulated through divergence. The hybrid identity of language teachers mirrors this, reflecting both unity and division concurrently. So the very fabric of hybridity is ever evolving, especially given the transnational, transcultural nature of teachers in new professional landscapes. Hybrid professional becoming is not solely about hybridity, though. It's also deeply influenced by elements like desire, solidarity, and ambivalence. As you can see, here are the assemblages of the desiring production manifested as lived time, lived space, lived body, and relationships with others. So vertically in this visual representation, you can see desiring productions evolved through life stages such as early childhood, school, university, initial teaching experiences influenced by socio-cultural practices and personal attributes. And horizontally, these elements steered their path as English language teachers and influenced their migration to Australia. So in their journey, there was an interplay between molar and molecular desires. These are delusion concepts. So here in this visual, I did not include too many molar aspects, but molecular aspects of their desiring production. So molar desires reflecting large-scale inclination aligned with societal norms were evident in social values attached to English and traditional curriculum-based pedagogy. On the other hand, molecular desires, which are nuanced and individualized, emerged from personal engagement like fondness for English through pop culture, memorable teachers, families, English practices, visits to bookshops, and reading favorite books, etc. So here are some specific examples for the assemblages of desiring production to become English language teachers. So in early years, Oksana actually reminisces that her parents listened to the Beatles songs, and since the time she was born, she was exposed to that music. She fell in love with the language. In school years, Yasha says, when I was in year 7, I think I volunteered to accompany a teacher to a bookshop, The Picture of Dorian Gray. I asked her whether I could get an extra book for me, and she did. I consider this the beginning of my English, and this was the first time I realized that English could be alive and beautiful, that it can express feelings and send subtle messages. To this day, I don't dare to reread The Picture of Dorian Gray in fear that the magic will disappear. The experience is too precious to lose, even today. So here are the other examples of the assemblages, as you can see. So for example, in initial teaching, T said, though initially she didn't think much apart from the idea that this job might bring some extra allowance and it would be great to catch up with Fung, her friend, more regularly at work. She found that the first few days at the language center changed her life forever, as she felt energized working with young children and a mix of local and expatriate teachers every week. So to answer to the second research question, how did the teachers constitute their professional identity in Australia? So migration involved not just relocation, but also an intricate translation of their identities for all the teachers. So the teachers' professional identity was impacted by the binary discourses of professionalism and the interlinked socio-historical categories and factors. So their professional identity was affected at intersectional and discursive levels by the activities, interactions, and perceptions of those surrounding them. And they were often categorized under the lens of deficit professionals based on factors such as race, class, gender, language, and culture. So specific determinants that defined these sociocultural categories included skin color, physical appearance, gender identity, status as international students, migrants or immigrants, nuances in spoken English and accent, place of origin, English language test scores, their qualifications and experiences. That said, though, the teachers exhibited reflexivity and developed agentive practices propelling to hybrid professional imagination. So here are some examples. For example, in terms of pre-migration experience, Laura said, I took IELTS test, one of the many requirements for a secondary teacher 4 times. I applied for reassessments of the results of the 4th take. It was the most difficult part. So basically it took 2 to 3 years for her and 3 to 4 months of her salary in the Philippines. So here are more examples. And this is how these teachers, actually most teachers were impacted psychologically and emotionally and that impacted their professional identity too. So, for example, a teacher called Mahati said she was mortified by the fact that here I was an Indian with an Indian accent teaching English to native speakers. And even a male teacher, Carlos, said, I thought I could be too pretentious to teach English in a country where the official language is English, and I was not even born. So the female teachers mostly felt small in their body and in their appearance, and deficit in their expressions too. So in response to the third research question here, how do they imagine their professional identity in the future? Grounded on their practices of hybrid professionalism, the teachers envisioned their future roles as hybrid professionals, drawing from a tapestry of transnational lived experiences that transcended native and non-native binaries. The notion of hybrid professionalism embodies the depth of their diverse experience and their aspiration to positively influence the others, so empowering themselves by empowering others. By critically reflecting on power imbalances and fostering relationships based on solidarity, they recognized their self-worth, cultivated agency, and fortified their professional confidence, their becoming. This empowered them to view their identity evolution optimistically, seeing it as an enduring trajectory of personal and professional development. So here are some examples in relation to the research question 3. So for example, talking about hybridity, which is, their current practices. A teacher said, it's a mix of my education, teacher training, my workplace, colleagues and students, and of course, the conferences I attend, and lately social media, especially Facebook groups, and have had great impact on me. I've learned so much from the groups, conferences, workshops, webinar, etc. So the same teacher said again, initially when students, not all, very few, and sometimes would ask the Aussie tutor the pronunciation of a word or ask the tutor to read a story, I would be embarrassed. However, now I ask the tutor to read as a model for the students. I also tell the students that they should listen to different accents. So when I asked them specifically how they imagine their professional identity in the future, a teacher called Frida said, oh, sorry, that's a bit, I'm just going a bit ahead. So here are some more examples. For example, Frida said it felt good to be praised and commended for doing a good job. So here comes the impact of satisfaction recognition in hybrid professional becoming. And another example is Mahati's self-efficacy developed as the coordinator taught her everything about the AMEP program and answered all her questions, always very politely. And she was very warm and very professional. She gave me more responsibilities because she believed in my hard work and capabilities. So when I asked them specifically how they imagine their professional identity in the future, the teachers mostly responded as global English language teachers or cosmopolitan teachers. So Jigna said, I see myself as if I could be a global English teacher because English does not belong to one culture. It doesn't belong to Australians. It doesn't really belong to one country. So during COVID, I mean, most of the teachers some teachers who lost jobs, they were not despondent anymore. They actually found affordances of their professional identity to imagine themselves further as hybrid professional becoming or, cosmopolitan English language teachers. So they the teacher like Yasha said, as for Englishes, while local component is important, I tend to focus much less on it when teaching ELICO students located offshore, and they don't need survival skills in Australia. I'm aware of the Englishes of the world and always stress that often it's the usage in different parts of the world rather than what a grammar book says. And Frida says, online teaching had trickled down to me, then nothing by mid-2020. And I have, however, committed to moving to Europe next year to teach English. Okay, now what? Hybrid professional becoming. So to truly grasp the to truly grasp and promote the hybrid professionalism of cosmopolitan teachers, systematic dialogues and actionable programs are pivotal. And moving beyond the archaic notion of one nation equals one race equals one language, said by Professor Alan Luke, Emeritus Professor Alan Luke, there's an urgency considering Australia's diverse landscape to infuse education with multicultural and cosmopolitan worldviews and epistemologies, suggested by Alan Luke too. The onus is on training Australian educators not just in generic skills, but as hybrid professionals equipped with a cosmopolitan lens, integrating ethical and intercultural nuances for a more inclusive system assumed by the curriculum already. So institutions must ensure consistent support for English language teachers throughout their careers. And this study presents targeted recommendations across educational practice, policy, research and teacher education, potentially addressing the pressing teacher shortage too. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye for now.